What if I told you that the solution to North America's desperate housing crisis is actually hiding right in plain sight?
Yeah, literally right down the street for most of you.
Right, like hiding inside the structural corpse of an old 1990s blockbuster video. Or maybe one of those vacant, glass-paneled office parks from the early 2000s.
The ones that just have, nothing but dust and echoing footsteps inside them right now.
Exactly. Because for decades, the industry assumption was that these massive, empty husks, these dead malls and abandoned commercial centers, they were just blights.
Just giant concrete liabilities.
Right. You either ignored them or you eventually spent millions of dollars to bulldoze them. But today, we are diving into a massive opportunity here.
It's honestly booming right now.
It really is. We are looking at the trend of taking these ghost towns and turning them into highly profitable residential housing.
And it's an incredibly aggressive pivot for the market. You're talking about taking tens of millions of square feet of entirely underutilized commercial space and rapidly repurposing it.
Which addresses one of the most critical societal bottlenecks of our time, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mechanics of how this is actually achieved on the ground are just fascinating, especially when you look at the barriers to entry.
Well, the insights for today's deep dive are drawn directly from an extensive market analysis on adaptive reuse.
Which is a goldmine of data.
It is. So whether you're a construction business owner looking to scale your operations into a high margin niche, or you're simply someone who's fascinated by the changing architectural landscapes of our cities, understanding the mechanics of this shift is absolutely crucial for you.
Yeah, you really can't ignore it anymore.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why is this sudden gold rush happening right now, like seemingly everywhere at once?
Well, we're basically watching the violent collision of two historic macroeconomic trends.
Okay, break that down for us.
So on one side of the ledger, commercial vacancy rates are sitting at 20-year highs.
Wow. 20 years.
Yeah. Because, the post-pandemic shift to remote and hybrid work, it fundamentally broke the traditional downtown office model.
Right. Everyone's working from their kitchen table now.
Exactly. Add in the continued dominance of e-commerce, which has just relentlessly hollowed out the traditional shopping mall, and you end up with an unprecedented volume of vacant square footage.
So you have this literal ocean of empty space.
Yeah.
While simultaneously, we are living through an acute, desperate housing shortage across North America.
The supply and demand imbalance is just staggering right now.
It is. And looking at the sources, Canada is really bleeding on this front.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is why cities like Toronto and Vancouver are absolutely forcing this through just out of sheer survival.
Yeah, they literally cannot afford to wait for 5-year ground-up development cycles. The Canadian markets need livable units brought online at a frantic pace.
Right.
And adaptive reuse strips years off the development timeline.
But the U.S. is catching up fast, too.
Incredibly fast. We're seeing major initiatives in Minneapolis, Denver, Cleveland. Local governments are heavily incentivizing these exact same commercial to residential conversions.
So it's moved completely out of the realm of fringe architectural experiment.
Oh, yeah. It's a mainstream Tier 1 construction strategy now.
Well, let's drill into the economics of this, because the profit margins are what really jumped off the page for me in these sources.
The numbers are wild.
They really are. Adaptive reuse offers a 20 to 40% cost savings compared to new ground-up construction.
Which is massive for any contractor listening.
Massive. And obviously, the lion's share of that savings comes down to the fact that the structural shell is already sitting there.
Right. The shell, the deep foundations, the parking infrastructure.
The heavy utility connections to the municipal grid.
Exactly. The most volatile, weather-dependent, and labor-intensive phases of a construction project are effectively just bypassed.
It makes me think of buying a vintage car frame.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
Like the heavy lifting of forging the chassis, getting the core structural integrity that is already done. You're skipping the unpredictable manufacturing process.
Right. You just need to strip it down to the studs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Drop in a high-performance modern engine, give it a new interior, and you have a premium machine.
That analogy holds up really well, especially when you consider the carrying costs of construction loans.
Oh, yeah. Because time is money.
Exactly, because you bypass the excavation, the foundation pouring, the heavy structural steel erection, your schedule is drastically compressed.
Ground up might take, 36 to 48 months?
Yeah, easily. But a conversion can often be turned over in 18 to 24 months.
Wow.
In an environment with high interest rates, shaving 2 years off your carrying costs is a massive financial victory. And the scale of this is just staggering. According to Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, this adaptive reuse market is estimated to exceed $50 billion by 2028.
Wait, $50 billion?
$50 billion, yeah.
That is not a fringe niche.
No.
That is a fundamental realignment of the entire industry.
It really is.
But, I mean, that level of growth can't just be organic market forces, can it? There has to be an artificial accelerant here.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the accelerant is municipal panic.
Municipal panic.
Yeah, local governments are terrified of the urban doom loop.
Ah, right, because an empty building pays no taxes.
Exactly. A dead mall generates zero sales tax, a vacant office building eventually gets reassessed, and its property tax contribution plummets.
Which stars the city's budget for schools and infrastructure.
You got it. So municipalities are stepping in with very aggressive interventions.
Like what?
They're offering sweeping zoning variances, expedited permitting lanes, massive tax increment financing, or historical tax credits for developers who are willing to take on the risk of these conversions.
Okay, well, wait. Let me just push back on this premise for a second.
Sure.
Before we make it sound like some guaranteed windfall.
Yeah.
Because a 20 to 40% cost savings sounds fantastic on a spreadsheet.
It does.
But I've walked these older commercial sites. You are dealing with 1970s and 80s hazards.
Yeah, the hidden nightmare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking asbestos, mastic under the floor tiles, lead paint flaking off the structural steel, totally outdated seismic standards.
That's a valid point.
Wouldn't it be faster and, frankly, much safer from a liability standpoint to just swing the wrecking ball, clear the lot, and pour a fresh slab? Like, dropping a new engine into a vintage car is a fun weekend project, but if the car frame is riddled with toxic mold and the wiring is a lethal hazard...
Any sane mechanic would tell you to buy a new car.
Exactly.
No, it's a highly rational objection. And frankly, it's the exact logic that kept institutional developers away from adaptive reuse for the last 30 years.
Because the liability of hidden conditions was just too high.
Exactly. But the financing math has fundamentally shifted now.
Why?
Primarily because climate priorities dictate capital flow.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. Tearing down a massive concrete and steel commercial structure, hauling it to a landfill, and then manufacturing and transporting all new materials for a ground-up build, it generates an astronomical amount of carbon emissions.
Right.
Reusing an existing building generates up to 75% less embodied carbon than new construction.
Wait, 75% less? That is a staggering reduction.
That's huge.
So the environmental angle isn't just like a marketing brochure.
Yeah.
It's an actual financial gatekeeper.
That's exactly what it is. Institutional investors and private equity firms are bound by strict ESG mandates now, environmental, social, and governance goals.
Right.
They have massive pools of capital dedicated specifically to green development. If you try to swing a wrecking ball into a 200,000 square foot office building today, you're going to face ferocious pushback from municipal environmental review boards.
And you lock yourself out of the most lucrative financing rates.
Exactly. The capital markets are effectively forcing developers to work with the existing footprint.
Which brings us crashing into the brutal technical reality of working with that existing footprint.
Oh yeah, it's not easy.
Because you can't just hire a standard framing crew to turn a Sears into a luxury apartment building.
No, not at all. And what's fascinating here is the massive, highly lucrative skills gap this trend has exposed in the labor force.
A skills gap.
Yeah. You have this $50 billion wave cresting, but the construction industry is highly segmented. Residential supers are masters of livability, right?
Yeah, they understand the nuances of a residential finish.
They know how to sequence high-end millwork. But throw them into a commercial basement and ask them to retrofit a 500-ton commercial chiller system.
And they are completely out of their depth.
Exactly.
But the inverse is just as problematic, right? Your heavy commercial contractors can pour 1 million square feet of post-tension concrete. They can orchestrate a fleet of tower cranes.
But they don't think about the intimate acoustics of a shared bedroom wall.
Exactly. They aren't calibrated to design spaces where people actually sleep and raise families.
So the general contractor who can successfully bridge that specific gap, who can manage commercial-scale structural engineering while executing residential-grade finishes, is stepping into a market with almost zero competent competition.
Wow.
But like you said, the engineering hurdles are unforgiving. You mentioned hazmat abatement earlier.
Yeah, the asbestos.
You cannot just send a crew in with sledgehammers. It requires surgical selective demolition. You're painstakingly removing contaminated materials while shoring up the load-bearing integrity of a structure that might be 70 years old.
And let's talk about the plumbing. Because reading through the engineering breakdowns in the sources, the MEP retrofitting sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Oh, it's the hardest part.
Like a typical office building has a centralized wet core. The bathrooms and water fountains are clustered tightly around the elevator banks, right?
Yeah, and the rest of the floor plate is totally dry.
Exactly. But an apartment building requires distributed plumbing. Every single unit, spreading out to the glass, needs a kitchen sink, a bathroom, a washer, and drain.
You're hitting on the single biggest mechanical challenge of adaptive reuse right there.
How do you even do that?
Well, to distribute that plumbing, you are coring through 8-inch, often post-tensioned concrete slabs hundreds of times per floor.
Hundreds of times.
Yeah. And if you accidentally sever a post-tension cable during that coring process, you can compromise the structural integrity of the entire building.
It is terrifying.
It's very high risk. Furthermore, you're taking HVAC systems designed to heat and cool massive open-plan cubicle farms, and you're attempting to zone them for 200 individual, highly sensitive residential thermostats.
And the structural load shift has to be massive, too. I mean, an office building is designed to hold desks and filing cabinets.
Right.
Now you're adding miles of drywall, heavy residential appliances, and probably like a rooftop pool and amenity deck just to attract tenants.
Exactly. The dead load of the building changes completely, and that often triggers mandatory seismic retrofitting to bring the 1980s structure up to modern 2024 code.
Oh, wow.
And the regulatory code itself is a completely different language.
Because commercial fire suppression is based on wide open egress paths, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you chop that floor up into individual apartments, the fire ratings change entirely. Every single wall separating the units has to meet strict compartmentalized fire codes.
So the travel distance from a bedroom door to a pressurized fire stairwell is just heavily scrutinized.
Heavily. Every inch is measured.
So given that absolute mountain of complexity, the structural coring, the fire ratings, the hazmat liability, how does a mid-market construction firm actually break into this?
Without losing their shirts.
Yeah, without their margins being completely vaporized by unforeseen conditions.
So the most consistent strategy highlighted in the sources is scaling through phased exposure.
Okay, phased exposure.
Right. You do not bid on a 1 million square foot mall conversion as your first foray into the market.
That sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy.
It is. Successful contractors are building their muscle memory on smaller, lower risk assets. They're targeting vacant single-story strip malls or low-rise suburban office parks.
So you take on a 50-unit townhome conversion from a defunct strip mall to prove your hybrid capabilities before you try to tackle a 30-story downtown high-rise.
Exactly. Build the portfolio first. Furthermore, you have to build a highly specialized external team. You need to partner with architectural firms that exclusively understand adaptive reuse.
Why exclusively?
Well, one of the classic pitfalls is the deep commercial floor plate. An office building might be 150 feet from the core to the exterior glass,
Okay.
but residential code requires every bedroom to have a window for natural light and egress.
Oh, right. You can't just have a bedroom in the dark center of the building.
Exactly. So you need an architect who knows how to core out the center of the building to create internal light walls and courtyards, basically turning a massive square block into a donut shape just to make the floor plan legally livable.
That makes total sense. You can't just draw lines on an old blueprint and call it an apartment.
No, the city will reject it immediately.
But beyond the physical engineering, the sources spend a massive amount of time on the administrative friction.
Yes. The paperwork.
The sheer volume of paperwork generated by these hybrid projects seems capable of sinking a company entirely on its own.
The administrative burden is directly tied to the issue of hidden conditions.
Right.
When you open up the walls of a 40-year-old building, the historical as-built drawings are almost always wrong.
Every single time.
Every time. A structural beam is 2 feet lower than the prints indicate, or a plumbing chase is completely rerouted, and every single time that happens, work stops.
So the superintendent has to draft a request for information, an RFI, send it to the architect, wait days or weeks for an engineered solution, and then process a complex change order.
Yes. Meanwhile, the framing crews are just standing around, and your schedule is bleeding out.
And before you even get to that point, How are firms finding these specialized projects before the massive national conglomerates swoop in and lock up the bids?
Well, winning in this space requires proactive, highly localized market tracking.
So you can't just wait for it to hit the boards.
Exactly. You cannot wait for a project to hit a public bid board. You have to monitor municipal zoning change filings, track where the city is quietly rezoning an office park, and identify local incentive structures.
But that sounds like a full-time job.
It is. And according to Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence report, leveraging that kind of early-stage strategic tracking is the defining factor that separates contractors who dominate this niche from those who are left fighting for the scraps of standard residential builds.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because the solution to this suffocating administrative burden and the chaos of hidden site conditions isn't just hiring an army of junior project managers to shuffle paper.
No, that just eats your margins.
Exactly. The industry is rapidly adopting AI, specifically built for the complexities of construction. The sources highlight platforms like Smart Business Automator, and it completely shifts the paradigm of how these massive conversions are managed.
Oh, definitely. Because when you're dealing with thousands of pages of conflicting historical specs and modern residential codes,
Yep,
human error isn't just a possibility, it is a statistical certainty.
for sure.
AI systems are being deployed to mitigate that specific risk.
Well, let's ground this in reality. Imagine a superintendent is on the third floor of a conversion, and they uncover a massive load-bearing column that simply isn't on the 1980s blueprints.
Typical Tuesday.
Right. In the old model, they walk back to the job trailer, dig through physical binders, or try to search through 50 nested server folders to find the original structural addendums,
Which takes hours.
if they find it at all. But with the AI tools mentioned in the sources, they use natural language search. They pull out an iPad and type, "What are the structural load specs for the existing columns in the north wing?"
And the system instantly parses thousands of project files and delivers the exact engineering spec.
Yes, it's like having a project manager who never sleeps and instantly remembers every single spec and email.
I love that. It creates a frictionless single source of truth. But the utility goes way beyond simple search.
How so?
Well, when that hidden column inevitably requires an RFI, the AI utilizes the historical context of the project, previous communications, and uploaded code requirements to actually generate a highly technical draft of the RFI instantly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it bridges the gap between the field observation and the formal engineering request, cutting the delay from days to minutes.
So it's like having a forensic data analyst sitting in your job trailer 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
And it's doing schedule risk detection in the background, right?
Right. It maps the dependencies of thousands of line items.
So if your hazmat abatement crew runs 3 days behind schedule on the second floor, the AI instantly flags how that delay is going to bottleneck your drywall and electrical crews a month down the line.
Which allows the project manager to resequence the trades before the delay actually hits the budget.
That is incredible.
It is incredibly powerful for maintaining tight margins. However, we have to view this objectively.
Sure.
AI is not a magic bullet that replaces site management. The fundamental rule of data applies. Garbage in, garbage out.
So if you don't use it right, it won't help.
Right. The AI cannot detect a schedule risk if the superintendent isn't diligently inputting accurate daily logs. It reduces the friction of compliance and communication, but it still relies entirely on the expertise of the human workforce to execute the physical build.
Right. I mean, it doesn't swing the hammer for you.
Exactly.
But it automates the daily log summaries, pulling unstructured voice memos and quick meeting notes into clean executive reports.
Which saves so much time.
It checks your project data against the strict residential codes to catch compliance gaps before they become million-dollar teardowns. It allows a mid-sized company to take on the staggering complexity of a $50 million conversion without having to triple their back office overhead.
It really levels the playing field.
So bringing it all together, what does this all mean for the listener?
It means the landscape of commercial construction is undergoing a once-in-a-generation realignment.
We are looking at an exploding $50 billion market where economic vacancy and a severe housing crisis have perfectly aligned.
Our perfect storm.
And this is a movement heavily backed by aggressive municipal tax incentives and strict environmental capital mandates favoring carbon reduction.
Right. Though, yes, it is guarded by a complex technical reality that demands a rare hybrid skill set.
marrying commercial structural knowledge with residential livability.
Exactly. And navigating that regulatory maze and the hidden conditions requires serious leverage.
Which is why purpose-built AI tools are becoming absolutely mandatory for scale.
You really can't do it without them anymore.
So for the construction business owners tuning in, this is the definition of a first-mover advantage. The wave is forming right now, and the margins belong to those who adapt early.
You know, this raises an important question, though, one that goes far beyond the engineering specs and the profit margins.
Okay, what's that?
If our old monolithic centers of commerce are rapidly becoming our new residential neighborhoods, how will that fundamentally alter the psychological way we design cities moving forward? Think about it. When your new living room occupies the exact footprint of what used to be a bustling mall food court where thousands of strangers gathered for decades, the boundaries between public architectural history and intimate private space blur in a way humanity hasn't really navigated before.
That is a wild concept to wrap your head around. Living your most intimate private life inside the shell of what used to be the most public commercial space in your city.
It completely redefines the emotional concept of home.
It really does. Well, we'll definitely leave you to mull that one over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a great conversation.
Please subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share this deep dive with your team. It might just be the exact strategy you need for your next big business pivot. And be sure to visit smartbusinessautomator.com to learn more. Until next time, keep digging deeper.